Hi, I'm Jayne Groll. I'm CEO of the DevOps Institute. I'm here with Dan from Mobile Labs. We're going to talk a little bit about testing. We're here at Jenkins World on the second day. It's been a lot of great conversations going. So welcome, Dan.
Well, thank you, Jayne. Thanks for having me.
So have you been at Jenkins World before? Were you here last year?
We were here last year. This is actually our third year.
Okay, so what do you see? Do you see a difference between last year and this year?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot bigger, but bigger in energy as well. So I think there's definitely more attendees, but I think the excitement's a little more palpable, as a vendor from our side, but definitely the attendees and just kind of definitely the vibe, if you will, is a lot more excited.
Yeah, I picked that up as well. I was here last year, and I would tell you it was a good conference last year, but this year, there just seems to be some type of a maturity that's kind of translating into energy. Are you feeling that as well?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a snowball. It's picked up enough mass now that this whole DevOps thing, the continuous integration thing's really starting to pick up steam. So I think one thing we've definitely noticed is larger, more traditional organizations are definitely here, more classic enterprises, and they're trying to figure out where they are in their DevOps journey. So when you have big accounts like that, famous worldwide brands, and they bring that sort of gravitas to the conference, it just sort of carries out for everyone.
Yeah, I've noticed a theme of testing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people talking about testing. I taught a class this week. A lot of people are struggling with testing, trying to figure out how to integrate automated testing, continuous testing. We talk about no handoffs. The one handoff I'm hearing a lot about is testing handoffs. What are you hearing about? And of course, I know Mobile Labs has a strong relationship with automated testing.
Yeah, so we're definitely, testing and automated testing has always kind of been the white whale of enterprise IT in the DevOps cycle. But one of the things that we experience personally is the further challenges that mobile deliver, and they're the same challenges that everybody has. How do I get the right app to the right person on the right configuration at the right time? And then how do I test that in an automated fashion and in a hands-off fashion? No handoff, no touch, low touch, right? And mobile makes that even harder. And that's the problem we kind of help people solve, which is how do I get to this wide array of devices that I need to have? How do I automate testing on them? How do I get the feedback loop that things are working, it's ready to deploy, so that I can have hopefully continuous delivery, if not continuous deployment, even in a mobile world.
So if you had one piece of advice for organizations that are struggling with it, what would it be?
Oh, I think the big one is you've got to start building the automation in earlier now. One of the biggest things that we've recently launched was the capability to add Appium alongside our mobile device cloud in a very seamless way. So we're going to simplify the ability to spin up an Appium server, which is kind of as hot as Jenkins is for the CI world, is hot in the mobile automation world right now, but it also needs some tools like CloudBees provides to Jenkins on top of it to make it a little more enterprise friendly. And what that does by making it more enterprise friendly is you can start building that automated test case, whether it's unit testing or functional testing or even performance earlier in the cycle. You can really start adopting test-driven development, behavior-driven development practices into your entire application lifecycle. And the problem is if you do it too late, it's just too hard to keep up. You start realizing that I need different test cases for tablets versus phones versus desktop. This is just in a web world. If you throw real native apps into it, it becomes even more complicated. So we want to do things so people can start their automation journey earlier in the life cycle in a much more friendly manner and make it affordable, quick, and easy for them.
So how does that translate into skills for the IT profession? I mean, you mentioned test-driven development.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly developers have to develop some testing skills, right? Mm-hmm. They have to have competencies all the way down the pipeline, down the value stream. Everyone has to have some kind of testing skills. What are you seeing in that?
Yeah, it's actually pretty interesting because it's, the developers are typically not great at designing tests. So the ability to have those kind of pizza box agile teams where you still have someone who maybe thinks in that quality fashion, how is somebody going to break this outside of just the bounds of a written requirement? So you can, I think developers can absolutely learn those things from testers, thinking about how do I break this, the types of skill sets, where could it go wrong in the application or the unit that I'm building. And then I think the thing that downstream testers are going to have to start looking at is they're going to need to start building automation skills. And in the mobile world, those automation skills are really going to be development skills. So if you can learn how to write in Java or Ruby or any of those types of things, it's going to serve you very, very well. And the nice part is you don't necessarily have to be a full-on developer. You just need to understand the concepts of coding, understanding coding for automation, how to read some code and add those things. So I think Agile's exciting because you get those skill swaps a little bit against well-designed teams, which I think is what everybody wants.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that because, the one thing that we've noticed is there's two skills everyone IT has to have. They have to have some level of testing skills, whether they write a test case, they can analyze the test log, right? They understand the automation because the automation still has to be orchestrated, right? So there's certainly that. And coding skills. Regardless of the role that you're in, everybody has to have coding skills, he says. And I would imagine in mobile, that, as you said before, presents a whole new level of challenge, right? Because of platforms.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, mobile is so interesting because you'll get web developers who come in and they quickly learn mobile web is a completely different architecture than desktop web, and it requires very different skill sets. So the experience in mobile is something you have to work on. So even your development skills that you already have and you've worked on your entire career may not one-to-one translate immediately to mobile. And, and one of the reasons we made a bet on the Appium project that's nice about that is it's a library-based project, kind of like Selenium is for web. It's really sponsored by the same folks. So it doesn't mean I have to be an Objective-C developer to do iOS testing. I can bring my Java skills or, my Ruby skills or my C# skills or any of those types of things to come in. And that's nice because it adapts to the level of skill you might have downstream in your automation team, but also gives you a singular platform if your iOS web guy likes to just do Objective-C or Swift coding. So they can actually still build automation and then continue that platform downstream. So it gives a lot of flexibility in the skills that you can have so you can be, more universally viable and usable.
Yeah. So one of the buzzwords we're hearing a lot about is DevSecOps. So from a security perspective, getting security engaged in it. And I know, of course, security testing is a really big piece of testing all the way along. So what are you seeing on that? Are you seeing an emergence of interest in the mobile space, particularly about security and its relationship here?
We are, and the security aspect is really interesting because mobile apps and mobile websites can have a lot of personal information in them. I mean,
sure.
Your biggest mobile applications out there, your most utilized are actually things like banking applications. I mean, everybody loves to talk about the social stuff, but really it's banking, managing your insurance, managing retirement accounts, employee level information, because more and more people now manage maybe time off, healthcare benefits, all of those types of things. So the security components to that are exceedingly important because there's now this new entry point into your back-end data. And for the most part, there's lots of tools out there that allow you to use that same back-end data, which means it has those same potential vulnerability points, but you're coming in from a completely different architecture now. So what does that open up? There's still a lot of manual going on there because a lot of the static code analysis tools and dynamic tools aren't really ready for mobile just yet, but that's a huge market segment where we see potential partners and probably new companies that'll be at a Jenkins World in the future coming in to promote what they do for securing your mobile applications.
That's one of the things I love about the space, because you're right. A year from now, we'll be back at Jenkins World and we'll be talking to each other. And there may be a complementary tool or a plugin or something along the way that kind of fills a gap. And we're a very inclusive environment in that sense, that we kind of welcome that if it fills a gap that we don't have. So let's wrap up with that. So a year from now, we're sitting here, we're back at the Marriott Marquis in September, back at Jenkins World. What do you think you're going to see? I mean, do you think the themes are going to be the same? Can you kind of predict a little bit of where the market is going?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. This market is moving back to, you just mentioned, it's very best of breed right now. And I think it'll be interesting to see if we start seeing some consolidations in the space. And I don't think it's going to be consolidations like you've seen in IT in the past where big companies come by smaller companies. I think what's going to happen is you're going to start seeing mergers of all of these niche players into new IT stacks that are ready for a digital world. And that's one of the things that's still missing. So we're still missing next-gen performance testing. We're missing next-gen security testing, DevOps, deployment managers. So I think you're going to continue to see new companies grow out of that, and then some mergers of companies together into whole new organizations. So it'll be really exciting to see. I think all of these people will be here next year, but some of them may be in the same booth.
Yeah, and that's very fascinating. I'll be really interested to see that. And I also think with the rise of site reliability engineering, and we're starting to see the continuum beyond deployment, like what happens after you press the button. I think we're going to see a little bit of more of that as well. Do you kind of get that flavor?
I think so as well. We're still very DevOps side at this conference, so I think we're going to see some more ops. What comes in and what's that next generation ops platform look like for that continuous loop, for true continuous deployment?
Good. Well, thank you. I've enjoyed our conversation. I hope you have too. I think you've given our listeners some really good insights into where the market is. Congratulations. I know there's some really good stuff happening at Mobile Labs, so thank you. I'm Jayne Groll. I'm CEO of the DevOps Institute. We're here at Jenkins World with Dan and Mobile Labs, and thanks again.
Thank you.